It still looks like Hello, everybody. This is Omari Kamal with the P&G Index podcast. We're starting this thing weekly. We're in our third installation, and the person who I have coming up with me, I'm very, very excited to be with. And I'll let you know a little bit who she is in just a moment. But before we do that, let's just do a quick technical check. Abdullah, just give me a thumbs up. Are we good to go on all of our channels? I don't believe so. Instagram, I don't think we are. You can check that out. That'd be great. Well, it says we're live, but I don't know that we've actually gone live. What do you think? All right, we're checking. He said he holds up one finger. Give us a second. We're going to get ourselves together momentarily. All right, we're good. All thumbs up. Okay, good. All right, everybody. Well, look, thank you. Welcome. For being here again. My name is Omari Kamal, and I'm your host today. And ongoingly, this is the P&G Index. So the thrust of P&G is just like the name suggests. The P&G stands for profit and growth. So we're profitandgrowth.com, and we're accountants primarily. We do basic bookkeeping, tax planning, preparation. But what we want for each and every one of our clients is not just to have a set of financial statements that they can just congratulate themselves for having prepared. But we really want them to understand those financial statements and that they're able to use the financial statements and their tax returns or what have you for the purposes of having their businesses grow and to scale and to expand and to ultimately have their small businesses or mid-sized businesses work for them as hard as they work for it. So we have a certain vision that we would work with 10,000 small businesses in the next 10 years that have valuations of $10 million or more. Just think about that for a second. What would that mean? 10,000 small businesses with valuations of $10 million or more in the next 10 years. That's $100 billion for those of you who are reaching for your calculators. And the question that we're asking ourselves and the question that we invite you to ask yourself is, what would it look like to have $100 billion injected into the urban center? Because that's our focus. I'm on the south side of Chicago. And our focus right now is Chicago, but we're looking very soon to expand to Atlanta, to Detroit, to Houston, to New York, LA, and all of the other major metropolitan areas, because we're seeing a need in those areas. You drive through any major commercial corridor in the United States, retail corridor in the United States, and you're likely to see something that's a little lacking. Yeah, COVID had a little bit to do with it, but we suggest that something far more deeper and insidious is at play, not the least of which being that small, mid-sized businesses don't have the types of resources and the technical assistance that they need in order to thrive and to grow in the way they deserve. And that's our fundamental commitment. And in this show, in this podcast, what we want to do is bring to you people who we've stumbled upon along the way who are absolutely expert in what they do. And in particular, our focus is to bring you people who are masters in the capital game. We're creating a top 10 list of small business friendly bankers who you need to meet with and know. And in fact, that's the title of our show today, the role of relationship banking in small business. And who I have with me today is none other than Hyde Park Bank, Wintrust Bank's business banker extraordinaire, Caprice Lindsay. 26-year video. We were laughing about that. I'm like, 26 years? Are we up there yet? Are we able to say that now that we've been doing something for almost 30 years? But she has, and she's absolutely expert, and she's certainly deserving of a role. She also has the distinction of being the president of the Hyde Park. For those of you who aren't familiar with Chicago, we call Hyde Park downtown South. So she's the president of the Hyde Park Chamber of Commerce, and we welcome you, Caprice. Thank you so much for gracing us, blessing us, and being here. Thank you for being a part of this.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Omari, for having me.
Of course. And if you could just tell me, Caprice, I mean, again, the subject today is the role of relationship banking in small business. So, many of us, particularly again, those of us who've been around for a while, have seen the bank merger consolidation happen in a way where it's all we see now are Wintrust, Chase, Bank of America, and these larger banks, Northern Trust. We see these larger banks, and I suggest, and based my feeling is that something has been lost, and people's feeling of that they can actually build a solid relationship with a banker. And I wonder if you could just start us off with that. Like, is there still a way and a value in building relationship with one's banker, and what does that really mean for the average typical small business owner?
So in the small business world, having a real person and building a relationship with that said person as a banker is actually, I find it to be critical in managing your operating assets and having needs for lending in the future, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with big banks. Big banks have opportunities just the same, access to capital just the same, conservative lending processes just the same. The only disconnect is, while technology is a benefit to us, right? It's also can be it can also be the reverse, right? You want to be able to call your banker and say, I project I'm going to have some cash flow issues next month. What can I do?
Yeah.
As opposed to call an 800 number, get bounced around, and not get the support and the direction that you really need in order to get that.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just for the small business world, right?
Yeah.
Men and women run households just like they run businesses.
Yeah.
So it's also for the mom and dads raising their children, sending them off to college, and implementing that financial literacy component within their households, teaching their children how important it is to have a bank relationship with an individual that you can get to know, that understand your lifestyle, your financial choices, and ultimately guide you in the direction that you need in order to be a successful, sustainable working adult, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest add, is just really getting to know a person so you can become trustworthy with the banker. Because I know also in the past, with dealing with what we are historically used to, especially in minority communities, there's a trust issue, right? Where banks weren't trusted, and money was kept at home. And it's really important to kind of get out of these old habits of thinking, because your home can't insure your cash. Your home can't give you a line of credit on your cash.
Yes.
Your home can't apply for a mortgage on your, there's just so many factors into the benefits of having a bank relationship with the banker that exceeds just the corridor of small businesses.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great, Caprice. You hit on so many points, and one of the main things I'm taking away from what you're saying is that, look, everybody, the world is becoming more complicated and more fast-paced, not less. And there's so many different moving parts that are happening, and it's not a problem working with a big bank, because look, I'm taking from me as an accountant. For many of you all who will hear this, I hear the complaints about, oh, this bank doesn't do this, or doesn't connect with this program or this software. It doesn't have this type of an access. And there's a basic access version of that. But to your point, Caprice, there's this whole other issue of the new ways that we're having to think in terms of just surviving, just getting by in the world, and understanding our own financial picture. There used to, I'm from the South. You hit on something that was really powerful. One of the sayings that the elders used to say down in Mississippi was, hey, look, when you got yourself a house, you got yourself something. That's not necessarily true anymore. That's not the end of the line of the story, and it's no longer the largest investment that many people will make. I won't say it's not the most people, but there are other considerations to make when you take into account. We'll get into this, I'm sure, at some point. But when you take into account the different multiple streams of income that people are having to maintain, all that people are having to put in place in terms of planning for their state, their investment portfolios. To your point, small businesses, even small business owners, when we talk about small business owners, we can't talk about you all in a silo. You have to consider, like, okay, yeah, there's a business, but what is that business doing for your family? for your finances, and all of those things that go together. And you need somebody who can help to quarterback all of those different situations. And what I hear you saying is that in a great many instances is and should be your banker. So no, awesome. But with that, Caprice, let me build on that a little bit, because that's, like I said, it's a brilliant set of points. A lot of different ways we can go. But what would you say is the biggest thing you run into, particularly with small business owners, like the biggest challenge that you found that small business owners struggle with, that sometimes you might be successful with helping them along, sometimes you may not be? What would you say is the biggest challenge for you in working with small?
Probably being prepared. And when I say that, you'd be surprised at how often someone physically walks into the bank and says, I need a loan. And that's it.
I get it. I get it. I have my own version of that.
You know, having a business plan outlined, really taking the time to work with your accountant on producing financials. These are important things that you need in order to even start asking for loans when it comes to conservative banking.
Yeah.
So I'm always astonished. I admire the entrepreneur that has that ability to work for themselves and just dive in and risk it all, because that takes a lot. Many times having that aspect of the business does not always come with a financial aspect of it as well.
Yes.
So there's a learning process in that. Is just, let's start this business, but let's put together a financial plan for this business so we can be steady, on point, and prepared for future business, future revenue, future lending, or whatever have you.
Yes. Yeah, no, I get that. Being prepared. So, just so my version of that, Caprice, is that, like, look, so I share with my small business, no matter what point I meet them, because usually people only call me when either A, the IRS is knocking, or B, they know they're making money, but they don't know where it is. Correct. Or C, they've spoken to somebody like you and they say, hey, look, I talked to Caprice and she said, I need to fix my tax returns or figure out some new way to do them for the new year. And so, so for us, we say, hey, look, this is why it's so important to plan for taxes as opposed to merely preparing for them, because so many small business owners in that whole world of preparing spend so much time thinking about how to not pay taxes. They don't think at all about how to run a solid business that is profitable, that has a life of its own, and then takes into account what the various spaces in your growth trajectory are going to be. So this is, again, what you would call a plan. Like if you're going to plan, you plan to grow, you plan to scale, you plan to be profitable. And so our piece is this: I don't have, and this shocks people when we say it. We say, I don't have a problem with you paying taxes. And they say, well, what kind of accountant are you? I shouldn't have to pay any taxes if you're a good accountant. I mean, that's not true at all. In fact, like, look, I don't have a problem. If you're paying taxes, that means what? You're making money. And so I don't have a problem with you paying taxes. What I do have a problem with, however, is you being surprised by what you have to pay. And so when you're surprised about what you have to pay, that means that nobody warned you, nobody told you, nobody helped you consider what you need to consider in order to be profitable. And look, I'm not saying pay $1 more in taxes than what you should, but what I am saying is plan for it. And when you plan for it, you can have it shown on a financial statement and tax return. And when it shows that, now you and Caprice Lindsay can have a conversation that matters, that you've already thought about. Caprice and I were just joking before we got on, everybody. We were saying, hey, look, the worst time to ask for money is when you actually need it. Okay. So if you walk into the bank, hopefully if you're hearing this, you'll never do this. You'll never walk into a bank and say, hey, I need a loan, but you will prepare. But at whatever point, you consider one, even if it is too late, still have the conversation, because who knows what we could prepare for down the line in terms of alternatives. And speaking of that, Caprice, let me just ask you about, let's kind of lean into access to capital for a little bit. Tell us a little bit for what Wintrust likes and what types of programs because I know not every bank does everything and is important for everybody. And I'm sure you all have a wide reach, but kind of share with us a little bit for what types of services you make available for small business owners that are prepared.
Yeah, happy to. I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on, other than the service and helping the small business world, is that we look at each individual business uniquely. So mostly when underwriting is concerned, there's equation factors, right?
Yeah.
There's debt to income ratio. They look at your revenue. They look at your all the things on your tax returns, your credit score, the income and revenue of the guarantor. While the numbers part is part of an equation in underwriting, the biggest benefit to community banking, especially specifically here with Wintrust and Hyde Park Bank, is that we look, not only do we look at those financial aspects, but we also look at the business as a whole to make it make sense for lending, right? I think that's the biggest plug when it comes to smaller community banks and big banks. So while, for example, you might apply, let's say a small business owner been active in business for 5 years, applies for a $250,000 line of credit. It's not run these numbers in underwriting and it's yes or no. It's run these numbers and look at the business, determine what they qualify for, because maybe if they don't qualify for the 250, maybe they qualify for 125.
Right.
Okay. Right. So we will look at that, what we can do as opposed to just no, have a nice day. And even the worst case scenario where you may not qualify for any support at all, we still suggest establishing and maintaining that relationship with your operating account, working with your accountant, and preparing for lending in the later future.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know that at the very minimum, this is for everybody, even now, if you're scared, like, oh, I'm not prepared, I'm not going to talk to Caprice or Omari. No, let's still talk to us. Let us know. Talk. We'll still find out what you can do. And oftentimes, again, what do they say? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now, right? So we deal with that right now, and we see what we can do. And whatever we can do, at least we have a starting point and a reference point that we can build from this point forward. So got that. So good. So tell us a little for what you were saying earlier, Caprice. There were some things that were of particular interest that people may want to know about, like this easy access line of credit, for example, that might be appropriate for some people. Kind of give us a little bit of that.
So that's the most basic and standard product. It's a line of credit. Okay. So you can utilize or request up to $250,000 for the line. You would only have to submit your most recent 2 years of tax returns. That's both on the business and the guarantor.
Yes.
Okay. And typically it's I would just standard for ballpark money purposes. It's 20% of revenue, but don't look at that as a flat factor, right?
Okay. Starting point.
But that's pretty standard. Okay. The line of credit this easy access line of credit is supposed to be treated as such. So the whole purpose is to help you manage your cash flow challenges when you're in a bind, again, back to needing this, applying for this before you need it, right? Because you don't have to pay to have it. You only pay to use it. Okay. It renews every year. And what happens is when you have that cash flow challenge for a particular month, week, or what have you, you use it, whatever's needed. You pay it down when those invoices and that revenue starts to get you back on track, right?
Yes.
You want to make sure you're consistently treating it as a line of credit. Otherwise, when it comes up for renewal, if it's maxed out constantly, then maybe a term loan would be more beneficial for you.
I see.
Okay.
I see. Yeah.
But that product is pretty popular. It's pretty simple. Underwriting only takes a couple of weeks.
Got it. Okay, great. Yeah. So for sure, I'll definitely share that with some of our clients because it certainly could come in use. And I appreciate you underlining the fact, like, look, here's what this is for. I have a client in Atlanta, and we have a partner, a CDFI lending partner who also we share this particular client, and we went through some pretty aggressive budgeting techniques that were in line with one of our core strategies, which is profit first. And we held his feet to the fire and said, no, something's got to give. Like, no, you will be profitable this year, and we're gonna have to cut some things. And when we really looked, we saw that fully 35% of his revenue was being paid out in debt, or his expense totals were being spent in debt service. And we said, look, you got to go back to your bankers. I mean, I know they're not going to want to hear this, but you got to go back to them and say, hey, look, I'm underwater, and I haven't told you all this, but I need some help. And they were gracious with them. They said, look, we'll work it out. We'll give you some interest only options. And we did that. And I went back to this partner of mine and I shared with her what we did. And she says, Omari, I didn't intend, when I got in that line of credit, I didn't intend for him to max him out. And I said, look, but here's the deal. If you don't tell them that, it will get maxed out. Right. Because people look at lines of credit like, oh, that's my sort of, I guess in one sense, a get out of jail free card. And it is that, but you have to have a plan on the other end to get that thing back down. Because if you're just implementing the same old habits and constructs and you end up maxing that line out, it's not going to do you any good. It really is there. Like, okay, if I see something, if I have a cash flow hurdle or something that I'm pretty well assured I'm going to be able to come back from, that's what that's used for. But not just, oh, just in case I need it. Right. Because unless you have a structure in order to really support that, it'll always end up getting maxed out. So no, I appreciate you including that caveat, because then perhaps there's another conversation we can have down the line, Caprice, about the effective use of lines of credit and what types of case studies we can use those for. So awesome. So good. Let's talk about the other side very quickly, though, Caprice. What about? I mean, we're in probably the best interest rate environment that we've seen in years. So talk about going back 26 years. I mean, when's the last time you've seen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% interest rates on savings products? So what
years, right?
Yes. So say a little about that. What do we have going on in terms of high yield savings, money market, CDs, those types of things with Wintrust Hyde Park Bank?
So we have a high yield savings at 3%. We have our highest yielding certificate of deposit yielding 5%.
Wow.
Even for those that consider themselves in a money bind or crunch, I strongly recommend you utilize your reserve funds to bring a bit of a return to you, right? That's at home and with business. And I strongly recommend you take advantage of them now, because I don't see them staying this way.
I get it. We never know. Things are okay from an interest rate standpoint, but there's still a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace.
It's a lot of uncertainty. Yep.
Whole host of reasons. Well,
correct.
Stuff. Well, Caprice, how can people reach you? If people want to get in touch with you, besides just walking into the bank on 53rd Street, how do people get connected with Caprice Lindsay if they need
to? I can be reached at C Lindsay. I'll put it in the chat as well. C Lindsay at hydeparkbank.net. CLINDSAY at hydeparkbank.net. My direct line is 773-753-9630. You can't miss me. You can even Google me.
and she's not hard to find, you all. So I'm always surprised when with everything she has going on, she answers my calls, and I'm like, hey, Caprice, how are you? So anyway, Caprice, look, you've been a joy to be with. Thank you for being here with us. Let's do this again, could we please?
Of course.
Okay. Very good. Well, look, everybody, this is Caprice Lindsay with Wintrust Bank. This has been the role of relationship banking. Please reach out to her for any banking needs, questions you have. If she can't do it, she has a whole cadre of bankers around her that will be more than happy to help with whatever those specialty items are. But Caprice, we thank you again, and you all will see you next week. We have our very own Kendall Lawrence Anderson, Esquire, estate planning and business law guru with us next week. So look forward to that. And anything you need from us, check us out at profitandgrowth.com or email us at admin@profitandgrowth.com. We'd love to connect with you. Okay. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.